There are ideas so shocking, so contradictory on the surface, that when you look deeper, they crack the entire illusion of what you thought you knew. This is one of those ideas. Welcome to Buddha Unfiltered, where we strip away the myths, the stories, the dogma, and dive straight into the hidden psychology of awakening. Before we begin, drop a comment, listening from, and tell us where you are in the world. It helps this message reach more seekers. Now let's begin. Most people think Niccolò Machiavelli and the Buddha belong in opposite universes. One taught rulers how to manipulate, strategize, and control. The other taught monks how to release desire, ego, and illusion. One wrote The Prince. The other renounced a kingdom. One shaped political philosophy. The other shaped spiritual liberation. But what if I told you this? Machiavelli was closer to Buddhist psychology than 99% of Western thinkers. Not because he meditated. Not because he was spiritual. Not because he sought enlightenment. But because Machiavelli understood the inner mechanics of illusion better than nearly any political thinker who ever lived. Machiavelli didn't write about meditation. He wrote about perception, ego, impermanence, attachment, fear, desire, the exact same psychological forces the Buddha dissected 2,000 years earlier. He wasn't a monk. He wasn't enlightened. He wasn't peaceful. But he saw human nature clearly, without sentiment, without fantasy, without illusion. And that clarity, that ruthless honesty, puts him closer to Buddhist insight than most spiritual writers ever come. Let me show you what I mean. Machiavelli's first Buddhist insight, impermanence. Machiavelli warned rulers. Fortune will betray you. Friends will betray you. Allies will abandon you. Enemies will change. Public opinion will turn. Power is never permanent. He wrote, "Fortune is like a violent river." The Buddha said, "All things are impermanent." Both men were obsessed with one truth. Everything changes, and the ones who suffer are the ones who cling. For Machiavelli, a king clinging to approval was doomed. For Buddha, a being clinging to ego was doomed. Different worlds, same mechanism. Machiavelli's second Buddhist insight, ego is a dangerous illusion. People misunderstand Machiavelli. They think he encouraged arrogance, deception, tyranny. But Machiavelli repeatedly warned rulers, don't believe your praise. Don't believe your reputation. Don't believe your good fortune. Don't believe your own self-image. Don't believe the story you tell yourself. He was obsessed with stripping illusions away. He wrote, "A prince who relies on his reputation is ruined." This is pure Buddhist psychology. The Buddha said, "The self is a story, and believing it brings suffering. Both are telling you, your ego will blind you and destroy you." Not metaphorically, literally. Machiavelli didn't destroy the ego. He simply refused to believe it. That's Buddhism applied to politics. Machiavelli's third Buddhist insight, detachment. Machiavelli said a ruler must detach from popularity, emotions, comfort, flattery, fear, hope, the desire to be loved, the desire to be good, the desire to be perceived a certain way. He wasn't telling rulers to be cruel. He was telling them, attachment is weakness. Detachment is strength. The Buddha said, attachment is suffering. Detachment is freedom. Same core, different battlefield. Machiavelli taught detachment in the realm of power. The Buddha taught detachment in the realm of consciousness. Machiavelli's fourth Buddhist insight, the shadow. Centuries before Carl Jung theorized the shadow, Machiavelli understood the darkest parts of human nature. He wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, deceivers." This wasn't cynicism. It was clarity. Machiavelli understood that humans have unconscious motives. People are driven by fear, desire, and illusion. Public morality is a mask. The persona hides the shadow. People project blame and deny their darkest impulses. These are foundational truths of both Jungian psychology and Buddhist psychology. Machiavelli was diagnosing karma, kleshas, and conditioning without spiritual language. He saw the same forces the Buddha saw inside meditators. Only Machiavelli saw them inside kings and crowds. Machiavelli's fifth Buddhist insight, the world is a mind. The Buddha taught, reality is constructed by the mind. Perception is everything. Machiavelli taught, a ruler's success depends entirely on perception. Image is reality, not just manipulation psychology. Machiavelli understood that human beings respond not to truth, but to the appearance of truth. This is Buddhist Psychology 101. The Buddha taught that ignorance, avidya, is the inability to see reality as it is. Machiavelli taught that rulers fail because they indulge in wishful thinking. Same lesson, different consequences. Machiavelli's sixth Buddhist insight, let go of your identity. Buddhism teaches anatta, there is no fixed self. Machiavelli told rulers, when necessary, be a fox. When necessary, be a lion. He meant, do not cling to a fixed identity. It will become your cage. This is advanced Buddhist insight. Identity is fluid. Persona is fluid. Ego is fluid. When you cling, you suffer. When you adapt, you survive. Machiavelli's self-fluidity is not spiritual, but psychologically identical. Machiavelli's seventh Buddhist insight, suffering comes from illusion. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from ignorance of how the mind works. Machiavelli taught that rulers suffer because they cling to illusions about human loyalty, public gratitude, their own virtue, the stability of power, the reliability of fortune, their self-image, their emotions, their reputation, the idea that people act rationally. In The Prince, Machiavelli repeatedly uses one phrase, he who is deceived by this will fall. Buddhism's core message is, he who is deceived by illusion suffers. Same structure, same truth, different stage. Before we continue, hit subscribe to Buddha Unfiltered and comment, I see the illusion. It tells the algorithm to keep pushing deep content like this. Now let's enter the next dimension. The part that will shock almost everyone. Why Machiavelli's understanding of suffering is almost identical to the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths, according to Machiavelli. Most people reading The Prince see a book about power. But if you read it the way a Buddhist or even a Jungian psychologist would, you'll notice something hidden inside the lines. Machiavelli understood suffering, its causes, its illusions, and the path to ending it more clearly than nearly any Western thinker of his time. And here's the twist. If you map Machiavelli's worldview onto Buddhism, you get a political version of the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth, life is suffering. The Buddha said, life is dukkha, unsatisfactory, unstable, unreliable. Machiavelli said, politics is misery, betrayal, and constant danger. He described a world where loyalty fades, trust collapses, comfort disappears, fortune turns, danger rises, people change, allies betray you, gains slip through your fingers. He wrote, a prince must build his foundations on what is, not what should be. This is the core of Buddhist insight. The world does not obey your ideals. It obeys its nature. Pretending otherwise equals suffering. Machiavelli called it ruin. The Buddha called it samsara. Same meaning. The second noble truth, suffering comes from clinging. According to the Buddha, we suffer because we cling to ego, identity, desire, reputation, expectation, illusions. Machiavelli said the same thing, just with sharper teeth. A ruler suffers when he clings to being liked, being admired, being comfortable, being moral, without wisdom, being consistent, being seen positively, being a good person, being stable, being who he thinks he is. Machiavelli wrote, those who cling to their reputation perish by it. He understood the same psychological rule. Attachment destroys you. Clinging blinds you. Ego is a trap. This is Buddhism with royal robes. The third noble truth, suffering ends when illusion ends. The Buddha taught, see clearly and suffering ends. Machiavelli said, see reality as it is, and you cannot be deceived. Both men insisted on clarity over comfort. Both insisted on seeing human nature, not fantasies. Both warned that illusions about people, power, self, identity, morality are what cause suffering. The Buddha shattered spiritual illusions. Machiavelli shattered political illusions. Same sword, different battlefield. The fourth noble truth, the path to freedom. The Buddha taught the Eightfold Path, a method for awakening, seeing truth, and transcending suffering. Machiavelli taught something similar, even if he didn't call it that. He taught rulers to cultivate right perception, right awareness, right adaptation, right speech, including deception when needed, right action, meaning strategic action, right effort, meaning discipline, right mindfulness, meaning constant vigilance, right understanding, meaning understanding human nature. This is not the moral version of Buddhism. It's the psychological version. Machiavelli created a path out of political suffering by teaching the same principles the Buddha taught to escape existential suffering. Once again, same psychology, different application. Now we move into a deeper layer, one almost no one sees. Because Machiavelli didn't just understand suffering. He understood emptiness. Machiavelli's understanding of emptiness, sunyata. Emptiness in Buddhism means no thing exists independently. No identity is fixed. Everything arises from conditions. The self is not solid. Reality is fluid, relational, shifting. This is Buddhist metaphysics and Buddhist psychology. Machiavelli unknowingly was teaching emptiness in political form. Listen carefully. Appearances change. Circumstances change. A prince must become who the moment demands. This sounds like Machiavelli is being ruthless. In reality, he is being Buddhist. There is no fixed self. Only conditions. A ruler must be compassionate when conditions call for it, be feared when conditions call for it, be bold when needed, be cautious when needed. This is not hypocrisy. It is emptiness applied to power. Buddhism calls this skillful means, upaya. Machiavelli calls it virtù, adaptive excellence. Same concept, different mask. The secret angle. Machiavelli understood illusion. If the Buddha's enemy was delusion, Machiavelli's enemy was also delusion. Not enlightenment delusion, political delusion. Machiavelli warned rulers that illusion destroys kings. He wrote, "Men see what you appear to be, not what you are. Many have imagined republics that never existed. Those who rely on ideals fail. Those who trust human goodness are ruined." He attacked the same thing Buddhism attacks, believing the world is something it is not. The Buddha dismantled illusions of self. Machiavelli dismantled illusions of others. The Buddha said, "Know your mind." Machiavelli said, "Know human nature." Both sought liberation, one spiritual, one strategic. The dark paradox. Machiavelli was detached in the most Buddhist way possible. In Buddhism, detachment means no craving, no clinging. In Machiavelli's world, detachment means no dependence, no fear. He wrote, "The prince must be able to be not good, not evil, just not clinging to goodness." He meant, don't cling to being virtuous if virtue becomes an attachment that blinds you. The Buddha said, even virtue can become a chain if you cling to it. This is advanced Dharma insight. Machiavelli practiced detachment not to reach nirvana but to avoid destruction. Still the same psychological mechanism. Before we go deeper, drop a comment. I see the hidden angle. Your engagement helps Buddha Unfiltered reach seekers everywhere. Now let's enter the most surprising connection of all. Machiavelli understood non-self. Machiavelli and anatta, no self. In Buddhism, the self is not fixed. It is a process. Machiavelli insisted a ruler cannot cling to any fixed identity. He wrote, "A prince must learn how not to be good. A prince must adapt. A prince must be both fox and lion. A prince must appear one thing and be another." While this sounds like manipulation, it is actually a profound understanding of fluid identity. Buddhism teaches, identity is a tool, not a truth. Machiavelli taught, identity is a strategy, not a truth. Same insight, same emptiness, same dissolution of fixed ego. The difference, the Buddha used this insight to transcend the world. Machiavelli used it to survive the world. But the psychological foundation is identical. Now we go deeper into fear, realism, karma, and compassion. Fear, realism, karma, compassion, and the hidden Buddhist brain of Machiavelli. You're now entering the part of this exploration where the parallels between Machiavelli and Buddhism become impossible to ignore. Up until now, we've explored impermanence, ego, detachment, illusion, no self, the shadow perception. But now, we walk into the psychological center of both men's philosophies, fear. Because Machiavelli and the Buddha understood fear with terrifying accuracy, more accurately than most modern psychologists. Buckle in, this part is deep. Before we go further, drop a comment. Fear is the teacher. It boosts this audiobook so more listeners find it. Now let's begin. Machiavelli and the Buddha on fear. Ask the average person about Machiavelli, and they'll say one phrase, "It's better to be feared than loved." People quote it, but almost no one understands it. Because Machiavelli wasn't promoting cruelty, he was diagnosing fear psychology at a level frighteningly close to Buddhist insight. Here's what Machiavelli meant. People love you when it benefits them. People fear you when their desires contradict yours. People abandon you when better opportunities appear. People betray when fear of loss is stronger than loyalty. He said, men are driven by two principal impulses, fear and love. This is exactly what Buddhist psychology calls raga, craving, and dvi, aversion. Craving equals love and attachment. Aversion equals fear and avoidance. Together, these create suffering. The Buddha said, all actions arise from desire or fear. Machiavelli said, all actions arise from hope or fear. Same psychology, different vocabulary. But Machiavelli took it a step further. He understood that fear has predictable patterns, patterns identical to Buddhist teachings. Fear makes people irrational. The Buddha taught, fear distorts perception. Machiavelli taught, fear makes men blind. Both believed, fear makes you see illusions. Fear makes you cling. Fear makes you irrational. Fear makes you believe stories. Fear makes you attack shadows. If this sounds like modern psychology, it's because both men were 500 years ahead of it. Fear makes people predictable, karma. The Buddha taught that karma is the repetition of unconscious reactions. Machiavelli said, men react the same way in the same circumstances. This is karma, not mysticism, not morality, not cosmic justice. Predictable repetition. Karma is simply the mind repeating its patterns because it hasn't woken up. Machiavelli understood this completely. That's why he warned rulers. People repeat betrayal. People repeat fear. People repeat desire. People repeat excuses. People repeat self-interest. He was mapping karma in political terms. Fear can only control unconscious people. The Buddha taught, the awakened do not fear life or death. Machiavelli taught, only the ignorant can be easily controlled by fear. Both men understood, fear controls the unconscious, but consciousness dissolves fear. This is where Machiavelli gets misunderstood. He never told rulers to rule through cruelty. He told them to understand human unconsciousness and to avoid becoming unconscious themselves. This is why Machiavelli's coldness has more in common with mindfulness than cruelty. The secret, Machiavelli was not celebrating fear. He was warning against it. His entire message was, he who fears will be destroyed by fear. This is Buddhism. Why Machiavelli's realism is actually Buddhist clarity. The Buddha taught, there is suffering because the mind does not see clearly. Machiavelli taught rulers, you fail because you do not see the world clearly. The Buddha broke spiritual illusions. Machiavelli broke political illusions. Here are illusions Machiavelli shattered. Illusion. People are loyal. Truth. People are loyal only to their interests. Illusion. Appearing good makes you good. Truth. Appearance is a tool. Goodness is an illusion. Illusion. Morality will save you. Truth. Clear perception will save you. Illusion. Life will reward virtue. Truth. Life rewards strategy and awareness. Illusion. People act out of love. Truth. People act out of desire and fear. Illusion. Identity is stable. Truth. Identity is fluid and must adapt. This is identical to Buddhist teachings on illusion, Maya. The karmic loop according to Machiavelli. Machiavelli believed rulers get trapped in cycles. They cling to reputation. They cling to outdated strategies. They cling to their ego. They cling to their emotions. They cling to fear of losing. They cling to their self-image. They cling to fantasy. This clinging leads to downfall. This is karma. This is samsara. The Buddha taught the same pattern. Attachment, delusion, repetition, suffering. Machiavelli taught delusion, repetition, vulnerability, ruin. Same structure, different vocabulary. The surprising truth about compassion. Machiavelli is seen as ruthless, but he actually understood something most modern people never will. Compassion without clarity is cruelty. He wrote, "Mercy improperly used allows disorders to flourish." Translated into spiritual terms, compassion without wisdom creates suffering. This is Buddhism's principle of prajna, wisdom, combined with karu, compassion. Machiavelli isn't against compassion. He's against naive compassion. Just like the Buddha taught that compassion must be paired with insight or it becomes enabling. Both men believed compassion without truth is just fear wearing a mask. The secret agreement. Machiavelli and the Buddha both believed illusion is humanity's real enemy. Not fear, not desire, not betrayal. Illusion. The Buddha said, "Ignorance is the root of suffering." Machiavelli said, "Imagination ruins men. Imagination equals illusion. Fantasy equals delusion. Hope without awareness equals suffering. Identity without fluidity equals pain." Both men taught, see clearly or be destroyed by illusions. Before we enter the next dimension, hit subscribe to Buddha Unfiltered so you don't miss the next audiobooks we're making. And comment, clarity over fantasy. It tells me you're locked in with the deepest part of the message. Now get ready, because next, this takes us to the darkest and most powerful level. Power, ego, perception, no self, and the final hidden link between Machiavelli and the Buddha. We've reached the part where everything turns upside down, the part almost no one could imagine. Machiavelli wasn't obsessed with power. He was obsessed with illusion. And illusion is the exact enemy the Buddha spent his life destroying. Most people never catch this because they read The Prince as a book about control instead of a book about seeing the mind clearly in its darkest, rawest, most primitive form. But now that you've walked this far, your perception is shifting. You're starting to see the truth. Machiavelli understood the mind the same way Buddhism understands the mind, without filters, without myths, without fantasies. Before we go deeper, comment, illusion ends here. It tells the algorithm this message matters. Now let's step into the real secret. Power is an illusion, and Machiavelli knew it. Everyone thinks Machiavelli taught, power is everything. But he didn't. He taught, power is nothing if you believe it's real. Listen to his warnings. Fortune destroys the unprepared. Men will betray you the moment it benefits them. Fear fades with opportunity. Love collapses with difficulty. All power rests on the minds of others. What is he saying? That power is empty, unstable, dependent, relational, not absolute. That is sunyata, Buddhist emptiness applied to politics. The Buddha said, nothing exists independently. Machiavelli said, no power stands alone. Power is not real. Power is perception. This is where Machiavelli becomes undeniably Buddhist. Because Buddhism teaches, reality is shaped by the mind. Machiavelli teaches, power is shaped by perception. Same engine, different result. Perception is karma. Buddhism defines karma as perception, reaction, habit, fate. In other words, what you see creates what you feel, which creates what you do, which creates your destiny. Machiavelli said, the prince's fate is determined by how others perceive him, not what he is. Not what he believes, not what he intends, but what others perceive. If perception controls the world, then perception is karma. In politics, karma is public perception. In Buddhism, karma is internal perception. But both drive your destiny. Machiavelli understood psychological karma as clearly as any monk. The Prince as a manual for ego dissolution. You've probably never heard it put this way before. But The Prince, the book everyone thinks is about ego, is actually a manual for ego destruction. Machiavelli repeatedly instructs rulers to let go of the desire to be loved, the desire to be liked, the desire to be admired, the desire to be morally pure, the desire to be consistent, the desire to be seen as good, the desire to maintain identity, the desire to protect reputation, the desire to avoid fear, the desire to be themselves. He was telling rulers, your ego will kill you. Detach from it immediately. That is exactly what the Buddha taught. The Buddha said, let go of the self. Machiavelli said, let go of your image, your identity, your virtue, your need to be loved. This is ego dissolution in the real world. The monk dissolves the inner ego. The prince dissolves the public ego. Same mechanics, different battlefield. Why Machiavelli saw compassion the same way Buddhism does. Buddhism teaches compassion with clarity, not the weak, sentimental compassion people imagine. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Most people read that as cruelty. But the next idea, the one no one quotes, changes everything. Love is held by a bond of obligation, which is broken whenever it serves people's interest. In modern Buddhist terms, compassion without boundaries creates suffering. Machiavelli was not rejecting compassion. He was rejecting naive compassion, the kind the Buddha warns against in every sutra. Both men believed, wisdom must guide compassion, or compassion becomes harm. Why Machiavelli understood suffering more than Western philosophers. Western thinkers believed, suffering comes from injustice. Machiavelli said, suffering comes from illusions about human nature. This is identical to the Buddha's view. Ignorance creates suffering, not circumstances, not other people, not fate, not society. Ignorance. Machiavelli described suffering as misreading situations, trusting illusions, believing people are better than they are, clinging to reputation, believing love protects you, expecting loyalty, expecting the world to be moral. The Buddha said, misperception creates pain, believing in self creates suffering, craving leads to suffering, clinging leads to suffering, delusion leads to suffering. Machiavelli diagnosed the suffering of kings. The Buddha diagnosed the suffering of humanity. Same root, illusion. Why Machiavelli understood no self better than Western thinkers. Machiavelli believed, identity is fluid, self-image is dangerous, fixed personality is weakness, adaptation is survival, persona must shift with conditions, the self is not stable. This is not Western thinking. This is Eastern thinking. In Buddhism, the self is not fixed. Identity is a process. In Machiavelli, the prince must change with the times. Both share the same psychological truth. A fixed identity dies. A fluid identity survives. Most people cling to identity. Most rulers cling to image. Most seekers cling to ego. Machiavelli and the Buddha both say, let it go or it will destroy you. The shocking final reason Machiavelli was psychologically Buddhist. Machiavelli believed the world is ruled not by morality, not by virtue, not by ideals, not by identity, not by hope, but by cause and effect. Exactly what Buddhism calls karma. Machiavelli said, actions produce outcomes. Outcomes produce conditions. Conditions produce new actions. That is karma. He wasn't moralizing. He was describing the mechanics of cause and effect with the same clarity Buddhism uses to explain suffering. The Buddha said, when this exists, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. Machiavelli said, when circumstances change, behavior changes. This is the same principle. Machiavelli built a political system on conditions, causes, and consequences. The Buddha built a spiritual system on conditions, causes, and consequences. Same engine, different destination. Before we move deeper, comment, cause and effect. It pushes this audiobook through the algorithm and brings more people to this depth. Now we enter Machiavelli's meditation on power, the illusion of control, emptiness, and the collision between the prince and the Dharma. The secret everyone misses. The prince is not a person. It's a mind. People think the prince is a manual for rulers. But when you read it through Buddhist psychology or Jungian analysis, something stunning appears. The prince is the ego. The court is the mind. The advisors are thought patterns. The enemies are fears. The people are desires. Fortune is karma. And the entire book is a warning that the ego is ruled by illusion. Let's break it down. A prince clings to reputation, the ego clings to identity. A prince fears betrayal, the ego fears impermanence. A prince wants love, the ego craves validation. A prince falls to fortune, the ego falls to karma. A prince faces rebellion, the ego faces the shadow. A prince misreads the crowd, the ego misreads reality. The book is psychological, not merely political. Once you see this, everything Machiavelli wrote explodes into clarity. He wasn't just talking about kings. He was describing your mind. Machiavelli's fortune and the Buddhist wheel of samsara. Machiavelli believed that most suffering comes from fortune, the unpredictable, chaotic, uncontrollable cycles of reality. Buddhism calls this samsara, the wheel of conditioned existence, the cycle of gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, fame and disrepute, rise and fall, success and failure. Both men saw these as inescapable forces that crush the fragile ego. Machiavelli said, "Fortune controls half of our actions." The Buddha said, "All conditioned things are impermanent." Both concluded, "You cannot control the wheel. You can only control how you respond." This is the essence of Buddhism. This is the essence of Machiavelli. The prince and the monk, both are trying to escape suffering. Most people believe Machiavelli taught cruelty, but what he actually taught was how to avoid suffering in a cruel world. Machiavelli lived in an era where kingdoms were stolen overnight, families murdered, alliances broken, cities betrayed. He wasn't writing theory. He was writing survival. The Buddha taught monks how to escape existential suffering. Machiavelli taught rulers how to escape political suffering. Both were responding to the exact same human problem. Life is unpredictable, and the mind clings to illusions. Why Machiavelli rejected the idea of goodness, just like the Buddha did. This one will shock people. When the Buddha taught enlightenment, he said something that sounds heretical. Good and evil are ideas of the ignorant mind. Not because morality is useless, but because it is relative, conditioned, contextual, not absolute. Machiavelli echoed this perfectly. A prince must learn how not to be good, if goodness leads to his downfall. This doesn't mean be evil. It means morality cannot replace wisdom. The Buddha said, compassion without wisdom causes suffering. Machiavelli said, mercy without prudence causes destruction. Same principle, same clarity, different worlds. Neither man rejected virtue. They rejected blind virtue. Virtue without mindfulness is illusion. The prince as a mirror of the ego. Everything a prince struggles with in the prince is what your ego struggles with every day. Let's map it. The desire to be loved equals ego craving approval. The fear of being hated equals ego fearing rejection. The fear of losing power equals ego fearing loss of identity. The danger of believing praise equals ego falling for delusion. The danger of trust equals ego projecting fantasies. The instability of fortune equals ego clinging to impermanence. The downfall from illusion equals ego collapsing under delusion. The entire book becomes a manual for ego awareness. Machiavelli didn't know it, but he was mapping the psychology of samsara. Machiavelli's path to freedom equals the Buddha's path to freedom. If you take Machiavelli's warnings and convert them into Buddhist language, you get a perfect mirror. Do not trust flattery equals do not cling to praise. Do not rely on love equals do not rely on craving. Do not believe your reputation equals do not believe the ego. Do not cling to virtue equals do not cling to identity. Do not expect loyalty equals do not cling to expectations. Prepare for misfortune equals understand impermanence. Adapt to conditions equals understand emptiness. See people as they are equals see reality clearly. Build strength inwardly equals master your mind. Fear blinds, clarity saves equals awareness is liberation. Machiavelli's survival strategy is Buddhism applied to the battlefield of power. The final parallel, Machiavelli understood, no controller. Machiavelli believed something almost identical to Buddhism. Events unfold because of conditions, not because of personal control. He wrote, "Men cannot control events, only their response to them." This is Buddhism's doctrine of dependent origination in political form. The Buddha taught, nothing arises on its own. Everything arises from conditions. Machiavelli taught, success depends on adapting to conditions. This is Eastern insight, Buddhist insight, discovered in the chaos of Renaissance politics. Before we move on, drop a comment. I see beyond the illusion. Now we enter the collapse of illusion, emptiness, detachment, strategy, and the bridge between the Prince and the Dharma. The true teaching of both the Prince and the Dharma. Everything you believe about yourself is a story. This is the core. The Buddha taught, the self is a story your mind tells itself. Machiavelli taught rulers, reputation is a story others tell about you. Both are illusions. Both are fragile. Both are dangerous. Both collapse under pressure. Buddhism warns that the biggest suffering in life comes from believing the stories we tell ourselves. Machiavelli warns that the biggest downfall in politics comes from believing the stories people tell about you. In both worlds, stories are illusions. Illusions are unstable. Clinging to them is fatal. The Buddhist lesson of Machiavelli's Fox and Lion. One of Machiavelli's most famous lessons is, be a lion and a fox. People interpret this as manipulation. But spiritually, this is teaching something much deeper. The self is not fixed. Identity is fluid. Wisdom requires adaptability. This is exactly Buddhism's doctrine of emptiness and non-fixed identity. In Buddhism, sometimes compassion, sometimes firmness, sometimes silence, sometimes confrontation, sometimes yielding, sometimes strength. This is called upaya, skillful means. Machiavelli's version is, today fox, tomorrow lion, today gentle, tomorrow fierce, not out of deceit, out of awareness of conditions. A fixed identity breaks under pressure. A flexible identity transcends suffering. The teaching, do not cling to being good. Buddha and Machiavelli together. People think the Buddha taught be good. But more accurately, he taught freedom from ego, including the ego of being good. Goodness is a form of self-image. Self-image is ego. Ego leads to suffering. Machiavelli understood the same. A prince must learn how to not be good when goodness threatens his survival. He wasn't rejecting goodness. He was rejecting attachment to goodness, blind goodness, naive goodness. The Buddha said, even wholesome states, when clung to, become bondage. Neither Machiavelli nor the Buddha wants you to be cruel. They want you to be awake, the destroyer of kings and monks. Wishful thinking. The Buddha called it moha, delusion. Machiavelli called it imagination. Both warned, wishful thinking creates suffering. Machiavelli said rulers fall because they imagine the world is moral when it is driven by desire, fear, and interest. The Buddha said suffering arises when the mind imagines permanence in a world of impermanence. These illusions are identical. People should be loyal. False expectation suffering. Life should be fair. False expectation suffering. My identity won't change. False expectation suffering. People should appreciate me. False expectation suffering. This is why both men emphasize clarity over comfort. Machiavelli's teaching of virtue equals the Buddhist path of mindful mastery. Machiavelli uses a word, virtue. People think it means virtue. It doesn't. Virtue means personal mastery. Mastery of self, mastery of mind, mastery of response to chaos. This is so close to Buddhism that it's almost unsettling. What does a person with virtue possess? Calm awareness, adaptability, clarity, discipline, strategic compassion, emotional detachment, acceptance of impermanence, deep understanding of human nature, ability to act without ego, decisiveness without attachment. This is not Western morality. This is Eastern mind training. This is mindfulness on the battlefield of power. This is Dharma in the throne room. Machiavelli's virtue is simply mindfulness, wisdom, and adaptability without the spiritual vocabulary. The most controversial parallel: Machiavelli understood emptiness better than Western religion. Western religion says, identity is fixed, morality is fixed, virtue is fixed, the self is fixed, the world is stable, human nature is predictable, goodness equals safety. Machiavelli rejected all of this. So did the Buddha, because both saw, everything depends on conditions, everything changes. Nothing stands alone. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is fixed. This is called sunyata, emptiness. Machiavelli discovered emptiness inside political reality. The Buddha discovered emptiness inside consciousness. Same insight, same truth, different domains. The final parallel: Machiavelli and the Buddha both destroyed illusions, and both set you free. The Buddha freed the mind by destroying the illusion of self, the illusion of permanence, the illusion of control, the illusion of morality as fixed truth, the illusion of expectation, the illusion of ego, the illusion of meaning imposed by desire. Machiavelli freed rulers by destroying the illusion of reputation, the illusion of loyalty, the illusion of moral idealism, the illusion of predictability, the illusion of human goodness, the illusion of fairness, the illusion of stable identity. Same method, same shadow work, same liberation. One freed the soul. The other freed the psyche. Both freed the mind from illusion. Before we continue, comment, I see the truth behind the power. Now we move into the hidden dharma of strategy, the emptiness of power, the shadow of the state, and Machiavelli's final alignment with the Buddha. The truth both Machiavelli and the Buddha saw: human beings live inside constructed realities. Not reality itself. Constructed, imagined, projected, shaped by fear, desire, culture, conditioning, and stories. The Buddha called this Maya, illusion. Machiavelli called it opinion, appearance, reputation. Both believed that people do not see truth. They see narratives. People do not act from wisdom. They act from impulses. People do not follow virtue. They follow incentives. People do not know reality. They know their projections. This is Buddhist psychology spoken through the language of politics. Machiavelli's state equals the Buddha's mind. Everything Machiavelli said about ruling a state maps directly onto how you must rule your mind. A state with weak defenses collapses equals a mind with weak awareness collapses. A prince who fears his advisors is ruled by them equals a mind that fears its thoughts is ruled by them. A prince must control his counselors equals a mind must control its mental formations. A prince must not be ruled by fortune equals a mind must not be ruled by emotions. A prince must govern himself first equals a mind must become aware first. Machiavelli was teaching mindfulness disguised as strategy. He just didn't know it. The internal court. Machiavelli wrote extensively on how a ruler must handle advisors, soldiers, citizens, enemies, allies, rivals, friends, informants, betrayers. Psychologically, your mind has advisors, thoughts, soldiers, emotions, citizens, desires, enemies, fear, confusion, illusion, and all of them compete for your attention. Machiavelli was mapping the psychological war inside every human being. The shadow of the state equals the shadow of the self. Carl Jung taught that every person has a shadow, the part of themselves they refuse to see. Machiavelli taught rulers to study the shadow of the state. Hidden alliances, secret resentments, unspoken ambitions, suppressed anger, brewing betrayal, internal thieves, masked rivals, false supporters. The Buddha taught the same about the human mind. Awareness must penetrate hidden cravings, suppressed fears, unspoken desires, unconscious habits, illusions of self, the root of suffering. Ignoring the shadow destroys you. Rulers collapse when they deny what is brewing inside the state. You collapse when you deny what is brewing inside your mind. Machiavelli's preparation equals Buddhist mindfulness. Machiavelli emphasized, preparation is everything. Vigilance is survival. Awareness prevents ruin. He wrote, disasters happen when men prepare only in calm weather. You don't meditate to feel peaceful now. You meditate to build awareness before the storm comes. The Buddha said, practice now, before the mind is overturned. Machiavelli said, prepare now, before fortune changes. Same principle. The emperor within. Machiavelli's real message wasn't, be cunning, be feared, be manipulative. His real message was, build power within so that external chaos cannot destroy you. This is exactly what the Buddha taught. True power comes from inner clarity, inner stability, inner mastery, inner awareness, inner discipline, inner detachment, inner understanding of conditions. Both men believed, the inner world determines the outer world. The illusion of control. Both the Buddha and Machiavelli agreed, you cannot control the world, but you can always control your mind. Machiavelli wrote, fortune controls half, we control the rest. The Buddha said, we control our intentions, not the conditions of the world. Both believed, the world is unpredictable, people are unstable, life is chaotic, circumstances shift, emotions arise, karma unfolds, fortune turns, conditions change, but the mind can still stay awake. The final bridge. Machiavelli was not a teacher of cruelty. He was a teacher of clarity. Most people believe Machiavelli taught rulers to be cruel, but Machiavelli taught rulers to be awake. Not morally awake, not spiritually awake, but psychologically awake. He exposed illusions. He dismantled false hopes. He stripped away fantasies about human nature. He told rulers, stop imagining loyalty. Stop imagining goodness. Stop imagining stability. Stop imagining safety. Stop imagining fairness. Stop imagining permanence. Stop imagining that the world makes sense. This is the same demolition the Buddha performs on the ego. The Buddha shatters the illusions of the self. Machiavelli shatters the illusions of the world. Both men say, wake up, see clearly, or suffer. The most controversial parallel of all, only awareness saves you. Not morality, not wealth, not status, not reputation, not being loved, not being good, not being correct, not being loyal, not being successful, not being admired. Awareness. For a monk, awareness leads to nirvana. For a ruler, awareness leads to survival. Same engine, same truth, same psychology. Machiavelli spoke it in the language of politics. The Buddha spoke it in the language of liberation. But both speak the same mind. Desire, manipulation, Maya, inner thrones, and enlightened power. We are now entering the final phases of this audiobook, where the most dramatic insights converge, where Machiavelli and the Buddha stop looking like opposites and begin to resemble different expressions of the same psychological truth. Before we continue, comment, I choose awareness, the root of all illusion. Desire and fear shape the world. The Buddha taught, all suffering arises from desire and fear. Machiavelli wrote, men are moved by hope and fear. Human beings do not act from truth. They act from what they want and what they fear. In Buddhism, desire, craving, clinging, suffering. Fear, aversion, avoidance, suffering. In Machiavelli, hope, desire, expectation, betrayal. Fear, obedience, rebellion. Both identified the same psychological forces that rule human behavior. Both saw, the mind is not rational. It is reactive. Desire makes people easy to manipulate. Most people suffer because they're manipulated by their desires. The desire to be liked. The desire to be praised. The desire to be loved. The desire to be admired. The desire to appear good. The desire to be taken seriously. The desire to feel important. These desires are chains. The Buddha said, craving makes slaves of men. Machiavelli said, He who controls men's desires controls men. Both recognized the same truth. Desire is the easiest way to control an unconscious mind. Machiavelli warns rulers to understand desire clearly before trying to use it. The Buddha warns seekers to understand desire clearly before trying to overcome it. The most dangerous illusion, the idea that people are good. The Buddha taught, ignorance, craving, and aversion drive all beings. He didn't say, people are good. He said, people are deluded. Machiavelli echoed this. Men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, deceivers. He wasn't insulting humanity. He was diagnosing its unconscious mind. People act from conditioning, not goodness. Misunderstanding human nature causes immense suffering. The Buddha calls this ignorance. Machiavelli calls it naivete. Same thing. The internal throne. Who really rules your mind? In every kingdom, there is one ruler. In your mind, there are many thoughts, emotions, impulses, cravings, fears, memories, fantasies, traumas, instincts, stories, shadows. They fight over the throne of your awareness. Machiavelli taught rulers to see who is secretly influencing them. The Buddha taught seekers to see which mental forces are secretly influencing them. In both cases, the message is, you must know who rules you before you can rule anything. Most people think they are in control, but their minds are controlled by fear, craving, conditioning, pride, insecurity, desire, anger, habit. Machiavelli warned, those who cannot control themselves cannot control anything. The Buddha taught, conquer yourself and you have won 1,000 battles. The enlightened prince. Machiavelli's real ideal was not a ruthless ruler. His real ideal was a ruler who is free from illusion. Not cruel, not manipulative, not reckless, not sentimental, not idealistic, free from illusion. His ideal qualities: clear seeing, emotional detachment, strategic compassion, understanding of human psychology, preparation, without paranoia, adaptability, without ego, decisiveness, without impulsiveness, realism, without cynicism, humility before impermanence. In Buddhist terms, this is someone who has right view, right action, right effort, right mindfulness. The illusion of control, revisited. Western philosophy, control the world. Buddhism, control the mind. Machiavelli, you can't control the world. Control your responses. Western thinking, control circumstances. Machiavelli, adapt to circumstances. Buddha, detach from circumstances. Both Machiavelli and the Buddha reject the fantasy that life can be controlled. Both say, life is chaos. Awareness is your only refuge. The parallel of parables. The Buddhist story. The Buddha and the angry elephant. He radiates calm awareness. The elephant stops, bows, and becomes peaceful. Moral, your inner state influences the outer world. The Machiavellian story. Cesare Borgia. Betrayed by a lieutenant, he doesn't panic, doesn't lash out, doesn't lose control. He waits, watches, acts with precision and no emotion. Moral, your inner state determines your survival. Same principle, different battlefield. The shocking final bridge. Buddhism teaches enlightenment. Machiavelli teaches enlightened strategy. The Buddha taught liberation from suffering. Machiavelli taught liberation from political ruin. Both methods begin with clear seeing, awareness, detachment from illusion, understanding human nature, mastery over fear and desire, adaptability, disciplined mind, acceptance of impermanence. Whether you're on a throne or on a meditation cushion, the mind works the same. Now we reach the final synthesis. Machiavelli, the Buddha, Jung, power, ego, death, and inner awakening. The final synthesis: Machiavelli, the Buddha, the shadow, and the real meaning of power. Machiavelli, the Buddha, and Jung were all obsessed with one thing: human nature. Machiavelli, how do humans actually behave under pressure? The Buddha, what illusions drive human suffering, and how do we break them? Jung, what unconscious forces shape our behavior, and how do we integrate them? They weren't in conflict. They were three surgeons dissecting the same mind from three different angles. All three came to the same conclusion. The unconscious runs your life until you become aware of it. The Buddha's unconscious, craving, fear, ignorance, delusion, projection, attachment. Machiavelli's unconscious, hope, fear, self-interest, impulsivity, ego, emotional reactivity. Jung's unconscious, the shadow, repressed emotion, hidden desires, the persona, the collective unconscious. Same architecture, different language. Machiavelli saw the unconscious politically. The Buddha saw it spiritually. Jung saw it psychologically. Machiavelli's manipulation is just awareness of the shadow. People think Machiavelli taught manipulation. What he really taught was, understand the shadow or the shadow will destroy you. Machiavelli's shadow traits: deceit, fear, betrayal, ego, ambition, self-protection. Jung's shadow traits: repressed emotion, hidden desires, shame, aggression, pride, fear. The Buddha's kleshas: greed, hatred, delusion, attachment, ignorance. All three systems describe the same thing. Humans hide their motives from others and from themselves. Machiavelli wasn't promoting the shadow. He was revealing it. Just like Jung, just like the Buddha, power is an illusion. Machiavelli never worshipped power. He warned against it. Power is unstable, unpredictable, dependent, fragile, unreliable, always changing, only real in perception. This is Buddhist emptiness. The Buddha taught, all forms are empty. All conditions are unstable. All states are impermanent. Machiavelli's power is just another samsara cycle. Gain and loss, rise and fall, praise and blame, fortune and ruin. Freemasonry parallel, the inner temple and the inner throne. Freemasonry teaches, the temple is not a building, it's the self. Jung teaches, the psyche is the inner architecture. Buddhism teaches, the mind is the world. Machiavelli teaches, the throne must be secured not outside, but inside. The rough stone is the unrefined mind. The master builder is the awakened self. The pillars are the dual forces of the psyche. The inner temple is the inner throne of awareness. Machiavelli didn't speak in symbols. He spoke in strategy. But the symbolism aligns. Why Machiavelli sounds cold? People react emotionally to Machiavelli because he strips away illusions they cling to for comfort. He removes the illusion of loyalty, the illusion of goodness, the illusion of fairness, the illusion of stability, the illusion of safety, the illusion of identity, the illusion of morality as absolute, the illusion that people know themselves. The Buddha removes the illusion of self, the illusion of permanence, the illusion of control, the illusion of desires, delivering happiness, the illusion that morality equals awakening. Both saw truth in its raw, uncomfortable clarity. The prince is the ego. The palace is your mind. The court is your thoughts. The army is your will. The enemies are your fears. The allies are your desires. Fortune is karma. Reputation is identity. Power is illusion. Read The Prince this way, and it becomes a Buddhist manual for ego management. The final map. Machiavelli reveals outer illusion, society, politics, human behavior. The Buddha reveals inner illusion, ego, desire, identity, craving. Jung reveals hidden illusion, the unconscious and shadow. Together, they form a complete psychological, spiritual guide to awareness, power, and freedom. You cannot master the world until you master the mind. You cannot master the mind until you face the shadow. You cannot face the shadow until you see human nature clearly. Now we reach the final climb, the illusion of morality, the liberation of clarity, and the mind as a kingdom. The illusion of morality. Both Machiavelli and the Buddha saw morality not as ultimate truth, but as a social performance. Not because morality is useless, but because it is conditional, contextual, and based on perception. The Buddha taught, good and evil are mental constructions. Awakening lies beyond them. Machiavelli taught, goodness is a tool. Attachment to goodness is dangerous. I am a good person is an ego story. I must always be good is attachment. Others should also be good is false expectation. Good actions always lead to good outcomes is delusion. Both Buddhism and Machiavelli dismantle this fantasy. The secret of both the monk and the prince. Wisdom is greater than morality. The Buddha taught, Compassion must come from wisdom, not emotion. Machiavelli taught, mercy must come from clarity, not weakness. Kindness without wisdom creates enabling, confusion, and suffering. Blind goodness is not goodness. It is fear wearing a mask. The true throne, what it means to rule your own mind. Machiavelli spent his life studying how rulers lose kingdoms. What he discovered applies directly to your inner world. A prince who does not know his advisors will be deceived, equals a person who does not know their thoughts will be deceived by them. A prince must discipline his soldiers, equals a person must discipline their emotions. A prince who fears his people is doomed, equals a person who fears their own mind is trapped. A prince who is loved but not respected collapses, equals a person who seeks approval instead of awareness collapses. A prince must not be at the mercy of fortune, equals a person must not be at the mercy of circumstances. The mind is a kingdom. You are either its ruler or its prisoner. The great enemy, self-deception. Humans are not destroyed by the world, but by their own illusions. Machiavelli warned, leaders fall because they believe their own praise. Rulers fail because they believe the world is moral. Kings collapse because they trust loyalty. Politicians die because they trust appearances. The Buddha warned, people suffer because they believe their ego. People suffer because they believe their desires. People suffer because they trust pleasure. People suffer because they cling to identity. People suffer because they cling to illusions. Buddhism teaches, stop believing every thought you think. Machiavelli teaches, stop believing every word you hear. Detachment is power. Detachment is emotional clarity, non-reactivity, mental stability, presence, freedom. The Buddha taught detachment to break the cycle of suffering. Machiavelli taught detachment to break the cycle of ruin. Detachment from praise equals freedom from ego. Detachment from desire equals freedom from manipulation. Detachment from fear equals freedom to act clearly. Detachment from identity equals freedom to adapt. Detachment from morality as identity equals freedom to see truth. Detachment from self equals freedom itself. Inner stability is the highest form of strength. The hidden danger of being a good person. The Buddha teaches, the good person still suffers if they cling to goodness. Machiavelli teaches, the good ruler still falls if they cling to goodness. Good person is a role, a story, a mask, an identity. Anything that is a mask feeds the ego. Anything that feeds the ego creates suffering. The real meaning of power. Power is not control. Power is not dominance. Power is not manipulation. Real power is inner stability while the world collapses. The Buddha showed humans how to achieve this in meditation. Machiavelli showed rulers how to achieve this in chaos. The path is the same. See clearly. Act without ego. Understand human nature. Accept impermanence. Adapt to circumstances. Detach from illusions. Build inner mastery. Rule yourself first. The conclusion. The Buddha, Machiavelli, and the truth hidden in plain sight. We've traveled through the minds of two men the world believes are complete opposites. The serene spiritual master and the ruthless political strategist. Now you see the truth. They were both students of human nature. Both dismantled illusion. Both exposed the unconscious. Both understood fear, desire, identity, and suffering. Both warned that clinging destroys. Both taught clarity over comfort. Both recognized the fragility of reputation, ego, and power. Both saw that awareness, not morality, not desire, not emotion, is the path to liberation. The Buddha used this insight to free humanity from suffering. Machiavelli used it to free rulers from destruction. Same psychology, same insight, same awakening, different battlefield. Because whether you're facing armies, emotions, political upheaval, karmic cycles, betrayal, inner demons, fortune, fear, desire, your own mind, the laws are the same. Human nature does not change when you change the scenery. The mind is the true kingdom. The self is the true ruler. An illusion is the true enemy. The final message. The ruler and the monk seek the same victory. Both Machiavelli and the Buddha are teaching you one thing. Do not fight the world. Master yourself. If you understand your fear, no one can control you. If you understand your desire, no one can deceive you. If you understand your ego, no one can break you. If you understand impermanence, no one can surprise you. If you understand illusion, no one can blind you. That is ultimate power, ultimate freedom, ultimate awakening. Not on a throne, not in a palace, not in a monastery, but here in your awareness. The ending, the call to awaken. So now we close this exploration, not with fear, not with manipulation, not with religion, not with morality, but with clarity. Remember, fortune changes, people shift, identity dissolves, desire fades, fear transforms, reputation collapses, power decays, the ego dies, but awareness remains. This is what Machiavelli missed by inches. This is what the Buddha mastered completely. Where Machiavelli used awareness to survive the world, the Buddha used awareness to transcend it. And now, you see both. You understand both. And you can choose the path that leads you out of illusion and into clarity. Whether that path looks like stillness, strategy, meditation, discipline, inner mastery, shadow work, detachment, awakening. It begins with the same act. Open your eyes. See clearly. Step out of illusion. Because in the end, there is no prince. There is no monk. There is no kingdom. There is no enemy. There is no self. There is only the mind and the awareness that sees it. That is the hidden light behind Machiavelli. That is the eternal truth in the Buddha's teaching. And that is why Machiavelli was more Buddhist than anyone ever realized. If this audiobook opened your eyes, take a moment and comment, "I choose awareness." And make sure you subscribe to Buddha Unfiltered, where we explore the deepest truths the world hides in plain sight. Thank you for listening. Stay awake, stay aware, and until the next journey, may you see reality as it is, not as illusion paints it. The end.